Welcome to the very first edition of the Monsters of Geek Spoilercast. And if you can't tell by the name, we are going to spoil things all over the place. It's going to look like a 40-year-old refrigerator having been cleaned out. So, this episode, we're going to do Daredevil Season 2. We've been talking about it for a while. If you go back and listen to some of our past podcasts, we've alluded that we wanted to do this. It was going to be a combo, but we decided we was going to do Civil War as well, but we decided just to concentrate on Daredevil. And then Andrew's sick, so when Andrew comes back, we'll probably do a Civil War spoiler cast soon. Give us, big spoiler opinions on the movie as well. But we all really like Daredevil Season 2. We wanted to talk about it, of course. I'm going to start over in 1 second.
You can't keep me in here.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Now she's got the giggles. This is great.
Let's count them. This is one.
Welcome to the first edition of the Monsters of Geek Spoilercast. In this episode, we'll be talking about Daredevil Season 2, and we will spoil it if you didn't notice, the title is our very first edition of the Spoilercast. So if you didn't get it by the title, then I guess you're just going to be spoiled. With us today is two of our original crew here. We've got Joe Yeti Collier, and he is back from his sickness as he's back here. And Jared is here also to talk about Daredevil. Andrew's missing. He is sick now, so the epidemic is running through the monsters, and hopefully he'll be back next week. We have a very special guest with us tonight. My wife, Shauna, is here this evening. She is going to give us her opinions on Daredevil. Guys, she has a lot of questions and about some of the stuff that kind of went on during Season 2, and we've kind of discussed it, and they're very valid questions, very good questions, but she wants to tell us how she liked the show as well, which I didn't think she would like. Season 1 was pretty rough in spots, and if you've never watched Daredevil and you're just kind of maybe listening to us to get a sense of how the show goes, it's on Netflix. It's past TVMA. It's more of an HBO type show, so it is a lot of language, a lot of violence, and very graphic violence a lot of times on the screen. So we're going to discuss that. But good to have her here. And guys, let's just start off the spoiler cast here. What was your initial reaction to Season 2, just overall, how it kind of compared to Season 1? Did it fulfill everything that you wanted it to fulfill, or do you think it kind of left you flat in spots? Go ahead, Joe.
If I just watched episode 1, it fulfilled everything for me.
We'll talk about episode 1 because episode 1 was really good too. Jared, what do you think about the season overall? Did it kind of meet everything you wanted it to do?
Oh yeah, I was very excited going into it, and like Joe said right off the bat, episode 1 just kind of picked up right where Season 1 left off, and it was great. I know a lot of people they don't review it as high as Season 1, but overall I think I may like Season 2 better. So,
Shauna, what do you think about Season 1? Or I'm sorry, Season 2.
I do like Season 2 better. It held my attention better than Season 1 did. I feel like Season 1 had the Netflix thing where they know people are going to binge watch it, so those middle episodes sort of slow down a little bit and lose my attention. And Season 2 didn't do that because there was more plot lines going on.
There's one thing that was pointed out as far as Season 2. As far as I like Season 2. I thought it was really, really good. I like Season 1 minus some of the introductory stuff. First 3 or 4 episodes were a little bit slow, but knowing the character, I knew it would pick up. And but I could see where Shauna's coming from. A little bit slow, kind of starting off and kind of introducing characters for people that's not necessarily familiar with Matt Murdock or Foggy or Karen or all those people, or the universe of Hell's Kitchen that we're more familiar with. One thing that Shauna pointed out, I didn't notice this because I didn't really, I guess I didn't really think about it because the show overall, as far as the look and the tone, was the same. But apparently this season was produced by Marvel Television Association with ABC Studios, with Doug Petrie and Marco Ramirez serving as showrunners, and in the series creator, Drew Goddard, acting as consultant. So basically some new showrunners. That was one of the things that Shauna kind of pointed out to me, was that there were some new creators there, and that may have led to some of the complaints because it's not completely the same direction as Goodard took it, and we'll kind of talk about that as we go along. So So let's talk about let's kind of set up what happened after season 1. Wilson Fisk is put into jail. Vanessa is somewhere overseas. Not Vanessa, but Wilson sent her. I'm guessing somewhere in Italy or somewhere in Europe or whatever, somewhere nice to be set up and protected, along with a bunch of his money. The season starts out with not much mention of Fisk, besides the fact that he is in jail, and there's kind of some hints that a lot of the gangs are starting to kind of come together, try to get their piece of the pie. So there's going to be kind of a gang war kind of brewing, which kind of comes to a head in season 2, but not necessarily. But there are a lot of kind of jockeying for positions as we move through season 2. Let's talk about the first episode right off the bat, because the first episode pretty much sets the tone for what we're looking at here. So basically, also at the end of the season, Nelson or Foggy finds out that Murdoch is Daredevil, and that's kind of a conundrum for Foggy. He finds Matt pretty much beaten almost to a pulp in his apartment, and that kind of opens up the season. Is that relationship is still a little bit frosty, to say the least. Foggy is still with Matt, still with the law firm. Karen doesn't know yet. Karen Page does not know yet, which is their secretary, and kind of takes the role of investigative reporter after Ben Urich dies. Spoiler for season 1, but if you're listening to this, you
Still
probably should have.
about that.
Shauna's still very upset with
For the
Ben.
record, Aaron told me all season long they'll never kill Ben Urich. Never will they kill Ben Urich. Dead.
Let's just take a poll on Ben Urich. How many of you guys did you think, minus the fact when Daredevil Wilson Fisk showed up in the room with Ben by himself, knowing what we know about Ben Urich, did you guys ever think they would kill Ben Urich? At least in season 1.
No.
No, I didn't either. I really enjoyed the character. I thought he brought kind of an extra depth to it.
Yeah, he's definitely, and that's something he's definitely missed. I mean, he's alluded to throughout the season. The editor of the newspaper he worked for kind of alludes to Ben being much more, even though in season 1 it was very kind of cold relationship as far as him and his editor, but they were very good friends, and how kind of the toll it took on him personally when Ben passed away. So Karen kind of takes Ben's spot almost. She's more of an investigative reporter now. She starts working for the newspaper about halfway through the season. She starts working through the newspaper in season 2 as we kind of move on. But the first episode kind of sets the tone. We'll just talk about the end of it, because that's what really sets the tone for everything. And that's the Punisher making his debut. The Irish, I believe, is set up, and they're kind of talking about their next move after obviously Wilson Fisk being in jail. And all of a sudden, they're in this big celebration of making plans. There is a hail of bullets coming through the window, pretty much taking out all of them but one, which kind of slips away, and we'll talk about him a little bit. And really survives for about half a season, I guess, surprisingly. But it pretty much wipes out the Irish gang, pretty much. Joe, you kind of alluded to it. That kind of set the tone for the entire season.
Yeah, I mean the whole episode you're expecting something to happen, and you don't know when it's gonna happen or where it's gonna happen, and then it's just like all of a sudden, just like you said, just a firestorm, like a whole army like shooting up where the Irish family is, and then you know who it is. Like they make it look like it's more than one person, but you know that it's the Punisher.
So the Punisher gets. Jared, I texted you when I saw it, and I was like, I can't think of another way that better fits the Punisher to make a debut in a TV show. You don't even have to show him. You know he's there because all the violence that is following him. Jared, what did you think about that scene and how it set up the Punisher?
I thought it was awesome. I like the way they kind of built it, because you don't see the Punisher until, which I just fast forwarded through the episode 1 just to kind of refresh my memory, and you don't see the Punisher until the last 5 minutes of episode 1. So you have that foreshadowing there, and it's just kind of that build for that character. And even when you do see him, it's kind of shadowy. So you don't really get the full reveal till right at there at the end of the episode, and then in episode 2 as well. But yeah, it was an awesome way to introduce that character.
So the Punisher is really introduced in a great way as a season. I mean, we'll go ahead and discuss the Punisher a little bit because this is one of the bigger, obviously one of the bigger characters and plot lines throughout. We find out the Punisher is a war veteran, and he comes back and basically his family was slain in basically crossfire. At least what we figured at the very first to be crossfire between two gangs. We kind of figure out more that there may have been more to that, as far as the DA being involved and the sting and everything else that kind of went awry there. But he wants revenge. Not far off from the comics, obviously. They've upgraded the origin to be more. To be more up to date with the wars that we have now, just like they did in the Punisher movie with Thomas Jane. I think they made him the first Gulf War, I believe, and then even earlier than that, it was the Vietnam War. So they kind of upgraded as they go along to make sure he's about 180 years old by the time he figures it out or whatever. Kind of keeps the age off the character. Shauna, this is one of the things as far as the Punisher and the storyline. For somebody who didn't know the character starting off, we had a lot of conversations about the Punisher and who he was and what he stood for. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he just a madman? What do you think about the character as the season progressed?
I didn't have the history of the Punisher. Luckily, I have Comicopedia that sits beside of me when I watch it, so it makes it a little bit easier. But I didn't particularly like him at first because those are not normal sized bullet holes that he puts in people. And that shot, where you think you're looking through a wall and it's a body. So that one sort of, but as Karen interacts with him more, I like him a little bit more.
Yeah, Karen takes a very personal stake in the Punisher. And almost to the point where you think something's going to happen.
I thought they were going to date.
Yeah, and even I read an article about it that talked about this weird kind of relationship. It's not necessarily a romantic relationship, but it's almost like a brother and sister type relationship. She wants to try to get Frank free, or at least not, obviously not the death penalty as it kind of goes along, and their relationship kind of forms. Jared, we know, I'm not going to spoil this, but we know what ultimately, as far as Karen Page's story, and it's a lot different than the comics than what we kind of discussed. Even the very start, we know she has some kind of past. It's been alluded to in the season 2 that she has some kind of past. In the comics, no spoiler in the comics, but in the comics, she basically has a pretty bad drug-riddled past. She ends up goes into the adult entertainment industry. In the comics, she sells out Matt's identity for drugs from Kingpin, basically one more hit. So there's something there. I don't know if they'll take it that far, but there is something as far as something in her backstory we don't know about right now. What did you think about where they're taking Karen and how she got involved with the Punisher and where that kind of story? I mean, she's kind of a completely different character, which is fine. I really like it. What do you think they're taking her and how she got involved with the Punisher and really became much more of a bigger character?
Yeah, I like the way they're building her up because, the first season she's kind of like the damsel in distress for most of the season.
Most of it, yeah, for about 3/4 of it.
Yeah, she does, a little bit of investigating, but overall she's more or less the damsel in distress. But then in season 2, you see her confidence kind of build, and, even as the problems come up between Foggy and Matt, you see her kind of start to rise up on her own. It's almost like she doesn't need them anymore. And she goes out and gets a job with the paper and just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. So I really like what they've done with that character. They've kind of built her into something that, probably better than what the comics have. I mean, in my opinion, just because she is such a prominent part of this.
Joe, what do you think about Karen and kind of, it kind of started, like Jared said, about 3/4 of the way through when she got with Ben, and she started kind of be that investigative journalist type person. Obviously at the very end, she shoots, can't remember, Wesley, which is Wilson Fisk's right-hand man. Obviously she had to. She's pretty much either he was going to kill her or she had to take the gun in her own hands and kill him. And you could tell that character kind of is growing even in that last quarter of the season. Joe, what do you think about where they took Karen Page, and do you kind of like where they're heading with her? And as far as the character, but like I said, very much different than the comics.
Yeah, I like it. Like you said, 3/4 of the way the first season, when she first gets with Ben, you start seeing her gain more confidence. And then the second season, she just kind of grows into her own character. I mean, I think in a way that the character kind of replaces Ben. And I don't know if she's gonna be. I don't know if they ever go back to what she was in the comics. I don't think they can.
Yeah, and that's where it's kind of completely different from there. I do think that she, and as we know now, she probably is a replacement for Ben at this point. Now, whether or not she stays that way, I don't know, especially with maybe more of her past coming through. Shauna, what do you think about Karen and how her character kind of advanced from season one?
Well, in season 1, I don't think that was the first time she's killed somebody.
No, it's alluded that she's running from something. That's why she ended up in New York.
Yeah. I like that they're not making her sort of the token female character, and that she's always, like Jared said, she's not always just waiting for Matt or Foggy to fix things for her, that she's kind of fixing their problems, so I appreciate that development of her character.
Yeah, the conflict between Matt and Foggy really does, just like Jared kind of alluded to, that conflict with Foggy knowing what Matt does and how Foggy proceeds the law. We see him kind of bicker in season one about, well, we probably shouldn't take this case because it's a lost cause. And Foggy kind of cares more about the money, but now Foggy is basically kind of challenging Matt. Is this, how the law is supposed to take? And during this time, like, there's episodes where Foggy and Matt's not even in a scene together, and really kind of build on that, I guess not distrust, but really kind of that frosty relationship. I hate to keep saying frosty, but frosty relationship between the two throughout and really becomes a straight up frozen relationship by the end of it. Shauna, what do you think about, Joe, talk about that a little bit as far as that conflict really raises Karen Page. And did you like the conflict between Matt and Foggy overall? Did you like how it kind of raised Karen up in the season?
Well, it raised Karen up in the season, but it also raised Foggy too.
That's true.
It kind of changed Foggy's whole demeanor of him not thinking that he was a good lawyer without Matt there. And then it kind of proved to him that he could do something without Matt. So it didn't only help Karen's character, but it helped Foggy's character too. I think it made Foggy a little bit more likable myself.
It did. I think Foggy, and you bring up a good point, this whole season really raises up some of those characters versus where it was very kind of Matt-centric, and what Matt did kind of, Foggy and Karen's storyline kind of followed up until Karen, kind of started doing some stuff with Ben as far as investigative reporting. But this season, they do kind of take Matt away from those two, and there's a lot of scenes with Foggy being a strong character, with Karen being a strong character, and kind of building those up. It's a great point that they're kind of separating these characters in order to build that. Jared, how'd you think about as far as how they separated Foggy and Karen from Matt, that Matt kind of, more or less be Daredevil for the majority of the season, while Foggy, by the end of it, he's being offered so many millions of dollars to come join firms because of how he dealt with the Punisher.
Yeah, I really like the way they did a lot of it, which I was just, fast forwarding through in episode 2. You see Foggy stand up to the district attorney, and in season 1, that's something that he wouldn't do because he didn't have that confidence. But right out the gate, they're already showing that he's willing to step up and is trying to do those things to make himself better. And then halfway through the end, when they're in the hospital and you have the two gang members getting ready to fight each other, and Foggy jumps in between them. And he went into the gang to find out. He was trying to get intel, that information. It's just stuff in season 1 that you wouldn't see him do, and he is developing into a stronger character. He has more confidence in himself. So I really like how they did it, because there was a lot of episodes where Matt was being Daredevil and those two were on their own. So it's kind of instead of the Matt, just the Daredevil show, now you have those two that you can lean on. I know in season 1 there's the episode where Foggy and Karen are helping the old lady with her apartment stuff, and you know what? I fell asleep during that episode. halfway through, and I woke up at the end of it, and I'm like, I rewound back a little bit, but I admit, I mean, it wasn't anything major. But if you miss some of this stuff now, yeah, I mean, I didn't fall asleep through any of it. So there's a big difference there in the way those characters are presented, I think.
Well, I think
Yeah,
as far
and
as I do think that season one we just kind of wanted to see Matt be Daredevil. It was the first time we've seen this guy on screen. We couldn't wait till he got his, or at least the interaction between, or sometimes in some cases we either want to see Matt or Fisk. Those are the scenes that we was kind of waiting on to see, how Matt reacted to Fisk, how Fisk reacted to Matt. Charlotte, do you think that the second episode, or not second episode, but second season, because of the fact they started kind of building those characters, did you feel in the first season like Jared did, there were some episodes you're like, when are we going to get to Wilson Fisk, or when are we going to get to Daredevil, versus now there were some parts in the season 2 where you're like, because those characters were so strong, every scene in the show was stronger because those characters became stronger.
Partially that. I also think their just storyline was better. I mean, I like Mrs. Cardenas, the old lady. I liked her, but I don't think her storyline was as compelling as what they were giving Foggy and Karen this year, or this season. So I think it's a combo that they're just getting a better, sort of more in-depth plot rather than the side plot.
Let's talk about the plots in this season, because there's a couple different plots kind of build. Obviously, the first one is the Punisher. The Punisher, from the very first get-go, as far as what he does and his brand of justice is brought in the spotlight. Later on, Elektra gets introduced, and then you get the Hand and a couple different things. So kind of building towards, much like last year, well, not really. The last year had one set focus. That was Wilson Fisk. And it kind of built, everything had to do with Wilson Fisk. This one, you've got Daredevil doing stuff, trying to stop the Hand. You've got Karen and Foggy taking care of the Punisher. They all kind of converge at one point, but they're mostly separate throughout the majority of the season. Did you like the branching plots that they're starting to build on? I mean, much like comics, sometimes they can get a little bit out of hand. But I thought that they did a really good job of keeping those things separate and only bringing them in when they absolutely had to. What did you guys think about the plots that were being built? Instead of a singular plot to kind of introduce Wilson Fisk and Daredevil as enemies, what did you think about the plots that were going on there? Or should I say, do you think that they did a good job of balancing two plots?
No, I think they did a really good job because, they kind of weaved them all together, but, it wasn't too convoluted where you're like, I can't remember what they did last time. Right. They kind of ran a small amount of one in each episode at least to keep your memory fresh on it, and they didn't leave any of them on the back burner. So you're like, oh, that happened in episode 2, and I'm on episode 13 now. I can't remember that one. So they did a good job of keeping everything fresh. And, it did make it more interesting and easier to watch that way.
Joe, did you like the plot points as far as the, dealing with basically two separate plot points? And to a certain extent, once the Punisher kind of got out of the spotlight and he kind of did his own thing, there was 3 plots with the Punisher, Daredevil, and Elektra, and then Foggy and Karen. Do you think they did a pretty good job of keeping those cohesive enough that you felt like you could follow it really well?
I mean, technically, if you really think about it, there's more than just 3. There's 4. You got Fisk in prison, too, doing his own thing.
Well, that's true, too. Yeah.
But I liked it, and I liked it because, like you said, in the first season, it was Matt. Everything was revolved around Matt. And there was times where Matt got his butt kicked and just walked into work the next morning. I'm like, how can he do that? And this season, you see more characters growing, so like Foggy and Karen can go out on their own and do their thing. And if Matt gets his butt kicked, he's not going to show up. And that's what I liked about it, because it makes it look, I guess, just a little bit more realistic, because nobody's going to take a butt kick and then show up after being stabbed, or kicked in the face or anything like that, and just walk into work like nothing's wrong.
Shauna, what do you think about the multiple plot lines?
I think they did a good job with the main plots, but it's some of those small subplots that I have the issue with, because I do feel like some of them got left behind. Like my big questions. What's that big giant hole in the middle of Hell's Kitchen? We never talked about it again. We go to see it, and it's gone. What is it? Where does it lead? Why did we talk about it again? Where are those little zombie children? How did they make them zombie children? And where did they go? So it's the main plots I'm fine with. It's some of the little things that we talk about and then we don't hear about them again.
Well, those are two plot lines that aren't tied up nicely, and I don't know if that's on purpose or they just kind of forgot it.
Well, I think that you'll see those again, just because the hand isn't finished. So, that could be they could keep introducing in season 3 or 4, however long they take to deal that one out. But I think you'll see more of that coming up.
Yeah, especially the hole, because there was no bottom. So it almost like, and if you kind of play into what the hand does, that hole has to do something with something spiritual. As far as throw back to Ghostbusters 2, it's like the bad mojo in New York, right on underneath the thing. You got to think that has to have something to do with the hole. I do believe that, especially with the children in the hole and in the hand still being the hand and Electra at the end, obviously, being kind of set up to be the next leader of the hand, which is very very close to what the comics do, because they're always trying to get her to be the leader of the hand. I think you'll see a lot more of that. I don't think the hand's mission is done by any stretch, and I think that's why we didn't see a nice bow tied up with those plot lines.
I just would have liked it to have been mentioned again. Like, just, you see it and it's gone.
Yeah, I think that, I think it maybe should have been mentioned on what Daredevil was going to do with that massive hole.
Yeah,
as far as
he's like, there's a big giant hole. What am I going to do with that? They just don't talk about it again.
Yeah, it's pretty much thrown away after they discover it. Now, like I said, I think they'll come back to it, like Jared said. But Joe, what do you think about those two plot lines? Did you think that they're going to be tied up again, or do you think that that's kind of just kind of a plot hole? Plot hole.
I don't think it's a plot hole. I think it's going to be introduced again, and I don't think it's going to be Daredevil's issue to fix. I think it's going to be Fisk's issue to fix when he gets out.
Well, interesting thing in the comics, and this is when I stopped reading Daredevil, when we kind of talked about it a little bit, was that comics, the guy that gets beheaded, and I can't remember his Nobu that gets beheaded. He's actually, from what I read, he's actually kind of a character in the comics, which is either the leader of the hand or like a first lieutenant of the hand or something like that. But it's a different name. I can't remember the name, but they alluded to it, and he basically dies kind of the same way. He's kind of immortal, but much like Highlander, you have to.
Now you've got that song in my head.
You have to deal with, you have to do like a mortal blow, like a chopping of the head off or ripping the heart out or something like that to kill an immortal for the hand as well. In the comics, he actually offers Daredevil the hand. Now, at one point, Daredevil kind of goes off the deep end and does accept it, way later. But from what I understand, in the comics, Wilson Fisk does take over the hand. Now, it has terrible repercussions. The hand ends up either kicking him out, or he just takes the hand and does what he wants to, and ends up not working out as well, obviously, for Wilson Fisk with the hand. So, Joe, it could very well be the fact that maybe Wilson does step in and become leader of the hand, or does something with the hand to bring them under his umbrella when he does get out, to build up something bigger when he does get out. Let's talk about the Kingpin for just a little bit. Let's shift gears a little bit. We don't see him. He's alluded to in the first couple episodes as far as what this gang war that may explode. He ends up coming in about 3/4 of the way through the season. Punisher, just kind of recap, Punisher goes to prison. Fisk has a guy on the inside, either gets information to the Punisher that he has information on who killed his family. It's kind of alluded to in the courtroom that one of the police officers, or something's weird with him. So first thing you think is like, is he Fisk, or is he maybe another crime lord or something like that, or maybe the DA, because we don't really know what the DA story is at this point either, as that's kind of being unraveled. He ends up, they was going to plead insanity basically, or PTSD, I think was what they was going to plead. He didn't want to do that. He told Karen he was going to do it, and then when he got into the courtroom, he basically was like, I'm glad I killed all these guys, blah, 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 even under his commanders, or his, I guess, commander, is that what you're saying? I don't know the military term, but the commander that, gave him a character witness as being a hero for the American people and all that stuff. Even after that, he was still like, I'm glad I killed, and I'll do it again and all that stuff. And I do the same way I did it. So he ends up going to jail. He meets Kingpin, and that's when Kingpin kind of comes in to the season. Jared, did you think that they wasn't going to touch on Kingpin? Because at that point, you knew that there was probably he was going to be brought up at some point, but he ended up playing a pretty big role the last 3/4 of season 2, and not only with Punisher but with Matt, and about how he's now kind of wanting to really get Matt back and kind of building that storyline and that kind of rivalry that they have. What do you think about the Kingpin being introduced in this season?
You know, it was something I was kind of waiting for because Vincent D'Onofrio, he did an amazing job in season 1, and just chewed the scenery. Anytime he was there, he stole the scene, and so it was something I was waiting for. And it's not that it was missed, but it was just something I was wanting to see. And then once you see the Punisher go to jail and start seeing their interactions. I love that character. I think he does an excellent job with it. I don't, when I first heard it, I was like, I don't know how he'll do. But then after watching that first episode he was in, I was like, man, he is amazing. And the way he can switch, from being so calm into that just violent rage that he has, it's outstanding to watch him do that.
Yeah, we talk about Negan in Walking Dead. And he we talk about reading, and one of the few characters that I can remember in a comic that I've read that if he's a scene you don't really know, and I've said this 1,000 times, that's what makes a good character. You kind of get nervous when you read him because you don't know what he's going to do. You don't know if he's going to get nice Negan or you're going to get crazy, whacked out of his mind Negan. And it's kind of the same with the Kingpin. I think he does a great job with it. Just like he says, he goes from silent before the storm to holy crap, he's crushing that guy's head with a door. Stuff like that. He's just like that. Shauna, what did you think about when they introduced the Kingpin? Did you think you were going to see him again, or was it kind of a surprise? I'm like Jared, it was a slow build. I knew at some point, but maybe near the end there you would see him. But he took a big chunk of that last 4 or 5 episodes.
I think as much as you talked about the rivalry between Kingpin and Matt, that he had to show up, I do think that his character had evolved a little. In the first season when I watched it, he almost seemed almost like a childlike psychopath, like struggling to speak, and Wesley basically is his face and his persona, and this time he doesn't need somebody to be his go-between. I feel like he's a little bit more evolved in his character. Like he's fully embraced the evil. He's not acting like he's doing good. He's embraced the evil.
Well, I think that you go from, I think in season 1 you firmly see Wilson Fisk, and in season 2 you firmly see Kingpin. Like he becomes that character. Frank Miller, when he talked about turning Wilson Fisk into the Kingpin from Daredevil, Kingpin in Spider-Man's comics was kind of a pushover. He's just a big dude, muscle-bound. Spider-Man always figured out a way. And when he wanted to make him more ruthless, kind of what he is now, there's a panel where he brings a cigarette up or a cigar. He lights it and it flashes in front of his face. He said the next panel is him just regular light. He said that was my way of saying this is a brand new character. This is a vicious character that I'm going to write and you're going to see. I think we saw that from season 1 to season 2. Wilson Fisk. Now we've got the Kingpin, and now Matt's going to be in a lot of trouble, I'm sure, in the future. Joe, what did you think about the Kingpin showing up, and what was your reaction when you saw him in prison, and kind of the interaction between him and the Punisher, which we'll talk about. But what did you think about the character as far as what you saw in season 2?
I loved the character in season 2. Just kind of elaborate what Shauna is saying about season 1. He went through Wesley a lot. I think he was trying to separate the two lives, because he was trying to have a life with can't think of her name right now. Vanessa, yeah, and then kind of keep it separate, and that's where Wesley came in. And then once Karen killed Wesley, and then Matt done what he done and pretty much put a stop to him, that's when you see the real Kingpin that we know it come out.
Yeah, it's like everything that kept him.
In season 2,
that kept him Wilson Fisk was gone. Vanessa was overseas. Mm-hmm. Wesley was dead. The other old dude, I think he pushed him down an elevator. Leland. Owsley, yeah. Pushed him down and I think killed him in an elevator shaft. So everything that kept him kind of connected to Wilson Fisk, that little boy that his dad beat up and told him all that crap about, was abusive to him and everything else. Now you're starting to see him be the Kingpin, and just like Joe said, it's kind of you knew it was going to happen. It's just a matter of when it was going to.
Well, the one thing I think that set him over the top was when he done what he done to Ben, and
Yeah,
that kind of
really,
set him over the top.
yeah.
So, and then he just, I mean, you see, he just continues down the same path in season 2.
Let's
So
talk about Elektra just a little bit.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
I think we need to talk about the scene with him and Matt.
Well, we'll get there.
If we're not
We'll get there.
talking
We're
about
definitely
it.
gonna talk about that. We'll get there.
Okay, all right.
Let's just talk about some of the characters
All right.
first. What'd you guys think about Elektra? We'll let Shauna start off here, but I like the casting because she is that Greek kind of European look. If you saw how Frank Miller kind of drew her, she's very gypsy-like, I guess. So very middle European kind of look. So I'm glad that they got somebody like that. I thought by the end of the season, I thought she really embodied Elektra. I thought it was kind of a slow build in her becoming Elektra, bringing in Stick, and kind of tying that character together with Matt and Stick. Shauna, what do you think about Elektra and her showing up in season 2?
I love Elektra. I love her. I think that her and Matt have such good chemistry. Just their characters play so well together, and I think she plays the ruthless killer, but differently. Like, you feel like she does have layers to her, that she tries so hard to be good, and she fails because she knows in her true nature that that's what she is a killer.
I thought they did a good job with the flashbacks, and that's something they did in the first season. I thought was really good because sometimes when you introduce, especially a comic book character, it's kind of an easy trope to get in. We're going to tell the first 6 episodes as the origin story, and I thought that they did a really good job with Elektra, her showing up and then kind of alluding back to their relationship and what went wrong and how Matt feels about her and how Matt is different around her. I think that's one of the big stories. How he's different around Elektra versus Karen or Foggy, and how he kind of has to fight that urge to kind of take justice into his own hands. Elektra, like, is very aggressive, and she'll go out and slit somebody's throat if she doesn't like it, while Matt is constantly fighting that kind of call to do justice, even though he knows he can't do it, but he sees why Elektra does it, because it takes problems out without having to worry about it. Jared, what do you think about Elektra and how she kind of got brought into the series?
Yeah, I like the casting. Like you said, she's got that. I think they went for the Greek look, Middle European, and it fits the character more so than when they cast her in the Daredevil movie. But in the movie, I wasn't really excited about the character, but then watching her development, and yeah, just how ruthless she is, like Shauna said, there's times when you're like, is she going to have this human side to her that Matt does? They've been put in a couple of those situations, but then all of a sudden, boom, she can't turn on that side like Matt has, and she kills the person. I think it's an interesting contrast, and I really like the flashbacks too, because some of the stuff that they showed them having a good time together, and how in love they were, and I think even building upon that, you can still see that carrying over into like the present day stuff. You can still see that hint that Matt still cares for her. He just doesn't know what to do with it, I think. So, but I really like the casting, and I really like the way they interact together.
I think Elektra is very much, if Matt would have hung around Stick for longer, that's basically who Matt would have became. And I think that it's almost like, not necessarily Matt looking into the mirror, but almost like, boy, if I'd have stuck around with Stick, I'd do the same thing she was doing, because of how just aggressive and how Stick kind of teaches people. And Stick is aggressive himself. He takes people out just like that. We see it numerous times last season and this season, that he's not afraid to kill either. And basically that's his MO, kind of, in this war that he's putting on, that involves Matt and Elektra in the hand. Joe, what do you think about Elektra as far as her introduction?
Well, there ain't no Ben and Jen, I can tell you that much. But no, I liked it. I thought they nailed it with the casting, and then with the character overall. I thought it was a really good. I thought it was a really good entrance and a way to bring her in too. At first, when I heard that they were bringing her in, I thought it was gonna be too much with her and Punisher, and I was wondering how they was gonna do everything. But I like how they kind of kept it separate, and I thought they did a really good job at it.
You bring up a good point because me and Jared kind of talked about that too, and me and Shauna was talking about it as well, about how we felt like maybe they was getting too many eggs in the basket. Maybe just the Punisher or just Elektra, because Elektra by itself has a huge backstory to kind of build off of with Daredevil. But I agree, Joe. I think they did a good job of keeping everything separate and then kind of intercrossing when they absolutely had to, and making it nice. Let's talk about some of our favorite scenes. Let's talk about the fight scenes first, because
you're gonna talk about the stairwell.
Let's just talk about the fight scenes overall. I thought the fight, compared to season 1, which had some pretty amazing fight scenes in it, as far as the fight scenes choreography and how it was shot, do you think season 2 jumped, kind of upgraded, or do you think it kind of stayed the same as far as quality, or do you think it, kind of paled in comparison to season 1?
I think
No, they upgraded.
What do you think, Jared?
what I was going to say was they kind of took it to another level, because a lot of the fight scenes in season 1 were one-on-one with, Matt fighting one person at a time, or maybe just a couple. But, with this one, like the stairwell scene, I flashed through that a couple minutes ago, and I was like, I forgot how great that was. He's got the gun taped to his hand, and they really went over the top, and that guy, the cinematographer or the choreographer for all that, man, they deserve an Oscar or an Emmy or whatever you want to give them, because the choreographer for that was amazing in just about every fight scene there was. So.
Shauna, what did you think about the fight scenes? You're more, and maybe if I'm wrong, you can stop me, but you like more of the character stuff.
I do. The stairwell scene was a little much for me. I felt I was like watching a live action video game a little bit. I tend to like the scenes like in the first season when he beheads him with the car door, and you think, oh, it's not going to get any more violent than that, and then Punisher happens, and then I think my favorite, though, if I had to pick a fight scene, is when he shanks his way out of jail.
That was pretty
like you
good.
think, oh, Wilson Fisk, he's brutal. He just decapitated somebody with the car door. Yeah, well, Punisher just took out all of his henchmen with a shank. So I think that was one of my favorites. And the fight scene when they send the little teenage ninja boy, the assassin, when Elektra just slits his throat and you're not expecting her to just, do that. I think that was one of the... Aaron has to suffer through my screeches when these things happen, so... I like that scene too, because it shocks you. The car door shocks you, and now that seems almost like child's play compared to what we've seen in season 2.
Let me say this: I love the stairwell scene. I think the Punisher scene was probably a better scene. It just me personally, because of how super violent it is like hyper violence. Now he's sticking people in the eye and in the ear, and he was just punching people's his fist going through people's chest. It was crazy. But I still think, as far as I still like that first hallway scene in season 1 better. I just like the way it's shot
when he's
better.
rescuing the little boy.
Yeah. I thought that was in season 1 where he faces the Russians in that hallway. I still think, as far as lighting and just this scene, I just think it's better than the stairwell. I'm not saying the stairwell was bad by any stretch, but I do feel like that scene is still better for some reason. I just go back to that one more than I do the stairwell scene. The stairwell scene almost comes off a little bit too ridiculous at times, and I think in the hallway scene, it's very much more of a fight. Like it's just this corridor and he's fighting and people are punching him and he's punching them, and it was almost a little bit too much in the in the stairwell scene. I think that's why I like the Punisher one better, because it more of like you're fighting for survival versus style. I think in those two scenes, I think did a little bit better with that.
I liked the choreography of the stairwell scene.
Oh yeah, the
but I
choreography is
hated
great.
that they kept getting up. Like I felt like I was watching you play whatever those games are that you just have to keep killing people over and over. I felt like I was watching that.
Yeah, and I think
Grinding, that's what you
there you
call
go.
it.
Yeah, when you grind through an RPG, everybody just keeps getting up and just keep getting attacked. Guys, compared to, I mean, taking season 1 and season 2, especially the big fight scenes, which one did you like? Which one was your absolute favorite? I know we named a couple of them, but which one was your absolute favorite? Silence. You're thinking really hard.
It's hard to pick.
You're only one. You only get one out of season 2.
Well,
Is your
Only one
favorite,
out of season 2.
and it's just a fight scene.
Just a fight scene.
Oh,
That's hard.
That's why I asked the
But I have
question.
to say,
We asked the hard-hitting questions
I
here
have to-
on Spoilercast.
I think mine is when he's going to rescue the Punisher.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Yeah, that one's a little bit underappreciated.
I like that one, and then I have a tie.
Just one. Whoa. You're doing that. You're doing that Joe thing. We're going to allude to where you say one thing.
Well,
you try to
everybody else
tack on
got to
four
talk
more.
about 2 or 3.
Do what?
Everybody else got to talk 2 or 3. I only got to talk 1.
Jared, I'll come back. Jared, what's your favorite one fight scene?
It may be where Matt and Elektra fight the Hand in her apartment.
Ooh, that's a good one too.
Yeah, I like the way that they interacted really well together in that scene. So yeah, I think that may be. I mean, of course, I won't pull a Joe. I'll keep my mouth shut. But yeah, they're all good. It's hard to pick just one.
I did like the one, and obviously the Punisher one is my favorite out of all of them. But if you
only get one.
well, I already
you
talked
already-
You only get 1.
You already
Only
said it, Aaron.
one.
Now you
Block
gotta keep your
privilege.
mouth shut.
What
Yeah,
about
you
my favorite? I think my favorite.
No,
one
no,
is when-
no.
One favorite.
Okay, fine. The Punisher's not my
One
favorite.
favorite.
Okay.
This is my favorite. The second fight between Punisher and Daredevil on the rooftop. I think that one. The first one you kind of get. It's kind of a flash kind of fight. It's not as long. But then you see two of probably the best fighters in the Marvel universe go toe to toe, and then you know obviously he tapes Matt to the chimney.
Chains him.
Yeah, chains him to the chimney. Or to the air thing or whatever they changed him to. But I thought that was a really good fight because it's just really cool for me to geek out and be like, oh, this is it. Daredevil, Punisher. We see it in the comics, and now we're getting to see it live action. I thought that was a really, really cool fight scene, really cool moment. What's yours?
I already said it. It's the shanking
The
scene.
shanking scene. Okay.
He
You
does
know
a
what
lot with
the,
the shank.
They
Okay.
do a lot with the shank.
You know what the
Now-
whole Punisher in prison reminds me of? It reminds me of when they lock Rorschach up in Watchmen. He's like I'm not locked up in here with you all. You are locked up in here with me.
It also reminds me of The Walking Dead when they put Tyrese in the prison and he goes into that gym
And it
just has a hatchet.
or they
It reminds me of that too. Yeah. Joe, what do you
they
want to
tell
say
them to
about
lock him in.
Let Joe have his number 2 and 3.
No, I just have another one that it's literally a tie between the one that I said when he rescues Punisher and then the one where they're rescuing Stick and Stick is sitting there like whispering to him
Ooh, that's a good one too.
and he's telling him listen to the heartbeat or just or whatever, listen to him breathe or whatever it is, and he has to sit there and he has to learn how to fight the Hand because he can't hear them, so you don't know where they're coming from.
That's a good scene overall. Just a good Daredevil scene. Yeah, very good one. Let's talk about the scene that Joe kind of alluded to before. This is the scene where Matt he knows at this point Kingpin has something to do with the Punisher.
Ooh.
And he goes in and basically is like, I want a meeting with Fisk, and they bring him in. And it starts out kind of. And at this point, like I was already kind of getting a little bit hot, a little bit nervous about this because we know
There was some tension.
a lot of tension between those two characters, and knowing the back history in the comics and how much tension, even more tension there is between those two characters. When Matt walked in that room and it was just him and Kingpin, that is just a well set scene. I mean, just two. First of all, two really good actors. Let's just go throw that out there. two really good actors, but two actors portraying those characters perfectly. And when Kingpin jumps up and grabs Matt, basically slams his head on the table and basically almost beats the, is really in that mode where he could have beat Matt to a pulp. That was just such a great scene, and probably one of the defining scenes in the series so far. Joe, you brought it up, so I'll let you kind of comment first. What do you think about that scene? And when Matt kind of walked into that room, what was kind of going through your mind?
I about needed to go get a brown paper bag because I thought I was going to have to ventilate. And then, it started out kind of, I'm not going to say civil in a way, but it kind of started out like here, like the lines here. And then Matt starts talking about Vanessa and all this, and you see Kingpin just go from like here to like all the way up here in no time.
Yeah, he goes to 11 really quick.
He goes to that part
Yeah.
of season 1 when he, kills his dad. You feel like he's in that kind of mode. Like he's just gonna take him out.
Well, I mean, the Kingpin, the one thing that kind of sets him off is his family.
Vanessa.
Yeah, well, not only Vanessa, but also when they went to visit his mom. That's what set him off and made him kill Ben Urich because, don't mess with my family. Don't mess with, you shouldn't have done that. Now I'm going to have to kill you and all that stuff.
That's what sets him off in the prison was when he talks about Vanessa
and
how he's going after the money and Vanessa will suffer and don't do
just
that.
Just a switch. Jared, what do you think about that scene overall? Just everything. First of all, the cinematography was great, and just that they have a name for that. And I can't remember what the name of that is, but there's a scene where you have two people in a room, and I can't remember the cinematic name for it. But Jared, what do you think about the scene?
I remember it was probably about 2 or 3 days after the series premiered, and I was just reading through Twitter, and I saw Kevin Smith just blow Twitter up about the scene, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I can't wait to see this now. And so it got to it, and it was kind of that slow build. You're waiting till those two get in the room with each other, but once it happens, I mean, it's a masterpiece of cinema. It was about 6-7 minutes long, and just the way they shot it and the way the two interact on screen together, I don't know if you could get any better than that. It's like Joe said, it was that slow build. you got that hyperventilating. You have that nervous feeling going in, and then once he, goes into Kingpin mode, you almost expect Matt, to reveal his hand and start taking shots at him, but you're kind of waiting for it, but he doesn't. So it's still building toward that, I think, to him finding out that he's Daredevil. But yeah, I love the scene. It probably one of the best shot ones in the whole series. And there's, every episode has a scene like that you can pull and say, if you want to show somebody how to shoot something, you be like, here it is.
Yeah, I think, and one thing in that scene that you kind of see, and Jared kind of touched on a little bit, is you could actually see the fear in Matt's face. Like when he grabs him and slams his head on the table a couple times, and then he pulls him up and is talking to him, you can see the fear gripping Matt's face because he knows that he can't put himself in a situation where he can't do what he knows he can do to the Kingpin. And just like, kind of what Jared said is, he can't reveal because obviously the Kingpin's wanting to know who Daredevil is. He can't reveal himself, and I think he put him in a really bad situation. And to be quite honest, it was almost Matt walking in with a lot of arrogance. Like, I took you out before, and I could do it again, but then forgetting that, holy crap, I'm Matt Murdock. I'm not Daredevil right now, and I can't reveal my hand. And it was almost like the arrogance. He then kind of discovered that, holy crap, the Kingpin could really kill me if he got a hold of me, and I couldn't do anything about it. Like, I have to protect Matt Murdock now because I'm not always Daredevil, and I don't want everybody to know that I'm Daredevil. And I think it was a very kind of eye-opening type experience for Matt because he put himself in a bad situation almost through his arrogance. And that's also something that throughout the season we kind of see is Murdock's arrogance a little bit. We see it with Elektra. We see him not showing up to court. We see him just think he can show up and win a court case. And in that scene, I think it brings Matt back to reality a little bit that, I'm not I'm not impervious to pain. I can be, somebody can get a hold of me as Matt Murdock and beat the crap out of me if I'm not prepared.
Well, I think we're gonna see it get worse too because it's not. I guess it was after that was when Kingpin asked for them to bring every file they have on Murdoch.
Right.
So.
And this is something, and knowing the comics, I mean, this gets really bad for Matt. And I, no, this is a spoiler cast. I can say whatever I want to, but this gets really bad for Matt. The Kingpin really, and we talk about this rivalry. It becomes more than a rivalry. It becomes, at this point, they probably got a begrudging respect for each other. At some point, it just becomes pure hatred for each other. And it causes Matt a lot of issues. Daredevil is the whipping boy of the Marvel Universe for a reason. Matt doesn't have. We kind of joke he's a Batman of the Marvel Universe, but not really because he's poor. He gets the crap kicked out of him more so he, kicks the crap out of people a lot of times. His personal life's a wreck usually. Kingpin's always trying to take him down. It's going to be interesting where they take it because this can go in the comics. It almost got too dark. Like it almost got to the point of like, man, really wish Matt would catch a break here. And in the comics he finally kind of catches a break, but. It's going to be really interesting to see how far they take Matt down that dark path. How far they let the Kingpin go.
I hope they take it. I just said I hope they kind of take it down the dark path.
Yeah, I mean that's the character, and if they really want to stay true to the character, then I mean they haven't introduced a lot of characters that make life hard for Matt. Even more so than. The Kingpin to a certain extent, but what do you guys expect from season 3? There hasn't really been anything said. It hasn't even started shooting yet. Where do you think that they take it in season 3? Do they stick with the Kingpin storyline, or do you think that they bring maybe some other characters in, or maybe start bringing in other, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones? Do you think we're going to finally start seeing that kind of more of a crossover there?
I don't know if we'll see Jessica Jones. I think we'll see Luke Cage. But I also think that this may be the season where we see Bullseye come into play.
And Bullseye brings a lot. And me and Jared, we've all kind of talked about this. Bullseye's...
Minus me.
Well, minus Shauna. Bullseye is... If Kingpin is I'm not saying Kingpin's a Joker to this, but really Bullseye's more of the Joker to Daredevil. I mean, he's a psychopath. He likes to kill people. He's a mass murderer. I mean, it's just craziness there. So I agree, Joe. I think that's the next logical step. I thought maybe they would wait until the Defender stuff was done and then kind of bring him back in because that's a big storyline. And Bullseye makes a lot of bad things happen in Matt's life. Some pretty impactful things happening to major characters. So I don't know how long they won't kind of spread that out. But yeah, Jared, as far as season 3, what do you want to see? Is there something that you think they're leading to?
Some more Daredevil Kingpin stuff. I like the interaction there. I just like Vincent D'Onofrio. Put him back on the screen, give him some more screen time. But overall, what I can see them building to is like another villain, and then in that background, you're going to have D'Onofrio or Kingpin trying to ruin Matt. Just keep digging stuff on him. And then maybe at the end of season 3, you might see Elektra reveal herself to be alive again, or sometime in season 4 if they go that far with it. But yeah, I would say Bullseye, and most of these characters you don't see them killing off.
Don't promise me that.
I'm talking about the villains.
Okay.
Like a Bullseye, I don't. They could put him in prison somewhere for a while. And I really don't know I can't think of a lot of the other Daredevil main villains besides Bullseye and Kingpin. Maybe if you don't do that, maybe.
Well, I
Kraven.
think as far as villains, you got to look at Melvin. in Gladiator. I think Gladiator's going to start playing a bigger role as far as that goes.
Hey, what about that little Easter egg thing that was in the back?
Stiltman, right? Did you see the Stiltman Easter egg? So Melvin in the corner there's Stiltman. I don't know how they'll ever bring Stiltman into this because Stiltman is one of the lamest villains you ever see in the Marvel universe. I don't know how they would actually. I mean, basically it's a guy in a suit that can grow his legs, and that's it. Like he can, he's a Stiltman. That's exactly what it is. He's a lame brain. I don't know how they would tie him into such a serious, kind of more grounded Daredevil versus because Stillman came out in like the 60s or 70s, so it was before Frank Miller got a hold of him, and so it was a kind of a goofier villain to go with more of a light-hearted Daredevil. So I don't think that they can. I think it was just a little bit of an Easter egg. If they bring Stillman into this, I'll be more than surprised.
I think you and I talked about it, Bob. That Typhoid Mary may be a good one to bring in.
That's a big one that hasn't been touched on yet. Yeah, another crazy woman in Matt's life. Matt's got a lot of crazy women in his life. Shauna, as someone who doesn't have a background in the comics, what do you want to see in season 3? Just, because obviously all you know is the show and what we've kind of discussed, but there's a lot of stuff I haven't told you because I don't know how they're going to touch on in the show. What do you want to see for season 3? Just sitting back watching as a TV show, what do you want to see from it?
Well, we've talked about how I don't think that they portray Matt's enhanced abilities well enough. And if you didn't tell me Matt's world on fire, kind of radar top, heightened senses, as an outsider, I almost view him like a really well-trained, just blind man. So I don't think they play into his enhancements enough. I would like to see more of that. I want to know what happens. I'd like to see Claire. I really like Claire's character, and I wish they would give her more plotline. I would like to see that developed. I like Kingpin better than I do the Hand. I have way too many questions about the Hand. It's obscure and, resurrection and eternal life, and so I like Kingpin better because that's more grounded for me, and I think that fits their sort of storyline better in Hell's Kitchen for what they're doing for the TV show. The Hand just seems a little bit almost too imaginary for me to get as in-depthly invested in.
The Hand does kind of. It is a little bit knowing what we know as comic fans. We know the Hand. The Hand is like super awesome group of villains or clan of villains. But for someone like you, I could see where it was kind of like whoa. This is a little bit jarring.
Machine that why did they clean her up? I mean, they dug her out of the ground and they show her all in makeup and stuff like that just bugs me. So
it's a ritual thing.
I don't care.
They're a cult.
Yeah.
Cults do things we don't understand.
I feel like it's a more impressive if she comes back to life and she's all muddy and dirty like they buried her. That's far more impressive than being with makeup on. And I don't feel like the Hand trains their ninja in makeup application. Just saying. That whole thing bugged me.
Probably not. That's a comic book thing.
Okay.
So it's a cool thing.
Well, she probably has a lot of cleavage then when she comes back too.
Well,
in a comic book store with
her costume in the TV series is much more modest than in the comic books. At least from the lower half.
I never know where to look when we go in a comic book store.
How about Mr. Fear or the Owl?
Well, the Owl's kind of alluded to.
He's got a son.
So Leland Owlsley, and I kind of looked. I was like Owlsley, and I thought about the Owl, and he does have a son. So we may start seeing the Owl kind of come into prominence there. The Owl's kind of the Penguin to Daredevil. I mean, he's not a huge character, but he is a character that can cause some issues because of his connections.
He's like an annoying fly.
Yeah, he's kind of annoying. He's he can be a threat, but usually it's just something silly.
And then Mr. Purple.
Well, Mr. Purple's in Jessica Jones.
Oh yeah, that is right. That was.
So he's already been kind of introduced, and that's something that we haven't watched Jessica Jones. And there was some alluding to Jessica Jones. Luke Cage was alluded to by Claire, talking about how there's more than just Matt out there in the city, and talking about Luke Cage. Jessica Jones, as far as the lawyer that the girl that played in The Matrix plays her, and I can never remember her name. Carrie Moss, yeah. the lawyer that she plays is also in Jessica Jones, the lawyer that offers.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
She plays a pretty big part in Jessica Jones, or not a big part, but yeah, a bigger part. I almost threw some spoilers out there earlier. Then I forgot you hadn't watched it.
If
I'm
we
glad I
watch
didn't
it, we're
say
probably
anything.
going to skip sections, is from what I've read.
Yeah,
it's different from what I mean.
it
It's
is
very
different, but
much.
I mean, there's maybe like 30-second parts where you can skip, but for the most part, I mean, it's pretty much like Daredevil. I think the language may be a little worse, but overall, there's not as much violence. There's just there's more sexual content,
Yeah.
but after a point, I mean, I think there may be like 3 or 4 scenes, but after that, no, there's not a whole lot. So, because it gets pretty intense in Jessica Jones. So,
Well, Clary kind of alludes to Claire kind of leaves. We don't know where she's going to go. I've read some things about her maybe starting to become that not nurse character, where she just kind of nurses the superheroes, or becomes kind of maybe makes her own clinic, but really it's a front for helping the Defenders and the superheroes. I think and I love that character. I think she's probably one of my favorite characters in the series.
she plays a pretty good part in Daredevil or Jessica Jones.
Yeah, so she is in Jessica Jones. I read about that she was in that, and so. It's interesting how they're going to bring it through. Just to touch on a rumor, I want to kind of get your opinion on this. Just overall, we've talked about how Marvel may never cross paths with the TV series because of the content and more of the darker tone versus the Avengers and more of the, much like they do in the comics, more of the more superhero stuff versus more of the street level kind of realistic type grittiness that the TV show has. There's been a rumor that Kingpin may be in the Spider-Man movie as one of the villains. It's been rumored for the last couple of weeks. Nothing concrete. They asked Vincent D'Onofrio about it, and he said he would love to do it. But what do you guys think? Because my personal opinion is I don't know how you can take such a violent character like the Kingpin and translate him to a PG-13 Spider-Man movie. I mean, there's a lot smarter people out there than I am, but I just don't know if they'll ever cross, because they very rarely do it in the comics. Like you very rarely, maybe Captain America, because he has more of a friendship with Spider-Man and Daredevil, more of the street level guys. But you don't really see that much crossover in the comics like that. And now you've got a super kind of more hyper violent reality in the TV show, still tied to the main Marvel universe. But I don't know how they can take his character and cross it over. What do you guys think about that as far as a crossover appeal? Shauna, go ahead.
I think it depends on how it's written. I think he kind of becomes maybe a little boring if I'm introduced to him, since I don't have a comic book background. If I'm introduced to him in season 1, and he's so brutal in season 1, that I think if you take him and you put him in the Marvel movies that I love, because they are a little bit more lighthearted, I think he almost becomes boring, because I've already seen him at his most evil, and now I'm seeing him more tame.
Jerry, what do you think about it? Do you think that it would be a mistake to kind of cross him over with that, or do you think they could figure out some way to make it work?
I think they could make it work, as if you have him running this almost type like a business or whatever, and they just go to meet him in the his office or something like that, where he's pulling the strings or something. And there are some things you could do to show that he's very violent, but at the same time not put it on the screen. People show up missing, or whatever they want to do with it.
Or the shadow trick. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this character, last time you see him, he's in Kingpin's office. Next time you see him, he's in a dumpster with his parts turned around backwards. Right. You can kind of hint to how brutal he can be, or the police can talk about it, be like, I can't believe how like I've never seen somebody so beat up in all my life, something like that. You could still have the dark character, but I don't think he should play a main role I think he can be mentioned and kind of have a supporting role in there, but not as the main villain.
Joe, what do you think about this version of Kingpin trying to cross over with something of a PG-13 nature?
Well, I mean, I think you look at Guardians of the Galaxy and they push the PG-13 limit to one side with that movie. I think they could push it to another side with the Spider-Man movie, more violent side. But I think you may see them. I don't know if they. You may see maybe like a Sinister Six type of thing come about. That's the only way I could think they could use him.
Well, I mean, he is at the heart of who he is. He started out as a Spider-Man villain, and very much in the same mold. Not so much as the violent kind of crazy mode, but very much a gangster, very much a mob type character. There is a storyline in Ultimate Spider-Man. I think it's issues 10 through 14 or 10 through 15 or something, where he does encounter the Kingpin for the first time. There is some like he crushes somebody's head and like the shadow trick, like he, in the comics, if they don't want to show the blood and the guts, it shows his hand going over this guy's head and it kind of warps out and you just see the shadow and you see like a splat or something like that. As far as the Kingpin, you could possibly do that, but I also don't want them to take Kingpin, put him in a movie, and change the Daredevil series. And I think that's where, because we saw it, an era where they can't use Deathstroke no more. Because obviously Deathstroke may show up in the Suicide Squad or may show up in a Batman movie or whatever else. So they kind of plucked that character out. I don't want this to happen in Daredevil. Kingpin is so much more important to Daredevil than he is Spider-Man. And I don't want that character, I don't want that series to be thrown in the whack because they're like, oh, well, we're going to take Kingpin for the movies, which I don't think that they're due. We're not talking about Warner Brothers. We're talking about Marvel. We're talking about Disney. I don't think that they would do that, but I don't want anything to mess with what they got now because that character is so essential to who Matt Murdock is versus what he is to Peter in the grand scheme of things. All right, guys. Do you guys got anything else you want to say about the season as a whole?
One question for everybody.
Yep.
Was there one geek out moment that anybody had during the season? If you could think of one time, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm glad they did that."
Yeah, when he finally got his what is it? His stick.
Yes, that's exactly cool. What I was thinking.
Yeah.
I texted Aaron right after I saw it, and I was like, "Have you watched this yet?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love that part." And then at the when he uses it in the last episode, I was like, that was a great use of it. Kind of like the first season, how he finally got his armor. But
yeah,
that was probably my geek out moment as well. And obviously, when you see the Punisher with the skull for the first time, that was pretty cool. When he's in that whatever that little house out in the woods or whatever, and he kind of starts making the skull on his vest, was pretty cool. But yeah, the Billy Club, as far as what we know as the Billy Club, not just the stick, but the rope and everything else that kind of goes with it. It just brought to mind that in Kevin Smith's scene, there was a scene in when he did Daredevil for the 12 issues or whatever that he did it for, and he's jumping through the sky and that rope's just going everywhere. That's always my iconic figure of who Daredevil is, and just him jumping through and that rope just Billy Club flying all over the place. Shauna doesn't have a geek out moment.
I was gonna say I don't have a geek out moment. I have freak out moments. I don't have geek out moments.
What was your biggest freak out moment?
When they behead Nobu at the end.
That was pretty brutal.
In the fountain of blood. It was almost like the people were like, oh, we're on Netflix, just extra gallon of blood in that scene, because it was just arches. Ugh, that's awful.
I think what makes that scene even worse is you get that hacking effect. It's just not like a clean slice. It's like,
and then the blood goes like that. It's
pretty
terrible.
bad. That was pretty brutal.
There's
they pulled.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was just gonna say they pulled the same Raimi on that one without the blood.
And
or Tarantino.
The Irish, the ice pick one.
That was my freak out moment when he put that ice pick in that guy's eye.
And he just keeps going like, ew. He's like the Irish kingpin basically.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Oh, and the screwdriver scene when they're torturing Punisher, when the Irish guy's torturing the Punisher.
Oh yeah, that whole scene was pretty brutal.
Oh,
I was really hoping they wouldn't kill the dog.
if
when
they
they
had stuck that screwdriver in the dog, I was done. I could handle it in a man's leg apparently, but forget the dog.
when they took the dog, I was like,
when-
oh man, I hope they don't kill the dog.
I loved when Stick started pulling back out the bamboo shoots.
Oh,
That was pretty cool.
see, there's so many. See, I watched season 1 and I thought I can handle this level of violence, except for the dad killing scene. Like I had my head in my sweatshirt on that one, but then all of season 2 is pretty much like that episode.
Yeah, that yeah, it was pretty brutal. I mean, they really kind of amped up. I thought that when the Kingpin killed that guy in the car and the sound effects like ka-chunk, ka-chunk,
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty bad. But
And that's like nothing now. Like you look back and you're like, oh, he just decapitated him with a cardboard. No big deal.
yeah, there's like 6 or 7 scenes in this one that just blows
6
the whole
or 7. The whole season's that way.
the whole season.
It is. Elektra slices dude's throat. The scene with the guy that killed Matt's dad, not quite as violent, but close.
That's pretty close too. Yeah.
Elektra's poisoning from the poisoned sword. That part's disgusting.
I think they really built. I mean, they kind of built it with the season 1, but they really kind of went full. Hell's Kitchen is a very violent place, and they really kind of did a really good job. And Hell's Kitchen kind of comes alive in season 2, like just the debauchery and the violence and the, there's really not even the happy moments, like when Matt and Karen go out to that restaurant, and it's supposed to be. You still have this sense of this isn't Hell's Kitchen. It's kind of lingering, this kind of just really cloud over the whole place. And I thought they did a really good job of making Hell's Kitchen a character.
What happens to Karen and Matt
Oh.
now that she knows that he's Daredevil? That's my question.
I don't know. It didn't go.
And she thinks he
I'll
cheated
say
on her.
one.
That's true. Go ahead, Joe.
I'll say one thing, and then I gotta get out. My battery's gonna die. What was I gonna say? Oh, yeah,
better
reading the
hurry.
comic books growing up. Yeah, reading the comics books growing up, and to this day, like I'll get people called from like Hell's Kitchen
And you think about
or
Daredevil, I do the
something,
same thing.
and I just think I'm like, man, that's a bad place. Like it's in my mind because of Daredevil.
And to be quite honest, from what I understand, Hell's Kitchen is like, not the safest place in the world, but they've done a lot of reconstruction
Yeah.
there, trying to build it up
Now
and
it's
stuff. Yeah.
fashionable.
Yeah, it's fashionable, and I still think
Yeah.
of it, man, it's a dirty place. Hope Daredevil's still around. Yeah.
There's one scene early on, and you see him fight Punisher, and Punisher, of course, take everybody out. But in episode 2, you see Punisher go and pick up all that police equipment from the guy. And
Oh yeah, I totally
That
forgot
poor
about
punk
that
guy
scene.
shouldn't have offered the child porn.
that's exactly, and you don't, for somebody who doesn't know a lot about Punisher, and they're like, oh, this is a bad guy, and then that guy offers him child porn, and he flips the sign on it.
Yep.
For a brutal moment, they could have showed that, but they chose not to. But just let your imagination run wild. I was like, that is a really well done scene. I really
Doesn't he
like
pick
that
up
one.
the baseball bat, right?
Yep.
It's not a gun. No, it's more personal.
No, he's gonna beat him
slower.
to death.
Yeah, that's something. It's the Hitchcock effect, right? Like
Yep.
your mind's going to take you to a lot worse places than what Hitchcock could put on the screen. I think that was one of, and you kind of hit on it, that you kind of think he's a bad guy. And for us, he's very honorable. He may be a psychopath in certain instances as far as the violence and who he kills, but he's a very honorable guy, and that really kind of puts him. Yeah, he's a hero, sort of, but it's the way he does things may not jive with how Daredevil wants it done in Hell's Kitchen. So, all right. Does anybody else got anything to say before we get out of here?
No, I think it's been a good episode.
Yep. Can't wait to season 3. So.
Season 3.
Is there any time frame on season 3?
No time frame on season 3. I know that they've kind of ordered a Punisher series, as far as at least put an order in. So we'll see how that goes.
Did you hear that they may be pulling Ghost Rider and somebody else in there and Moon Knight in with Punisher? I was like,
Ghost
now that
Rider.
might make it a little more interesting.
Yeah.
I thought you said like Ghost Rider. You know that show when you were a kid?
Yeah,
The flashy light guy.
Yeah, they're definitely, from what I understand, Marvel bought the rights, and they're going to bring them into the Marvel universe.
Who's
I'm really
writing
stoked for
this?
Moon Knight. I think Moon Knight would be awesome. I'm a huge Moon Knight fan. I think I'm the only huge Moon Knight fan on the planet, but I'm a huge fan of that character. All right. Yeah, so Daredevil season 2. If you're listening to this, you probably watched it. Just want our opinion. If not, then go watch it. Go actually see it in motion if we spoiled it for you. Yeah, that'll be it. Don't forget to visit monstersofgeek.com. Go visit us there, and then go check out all the cool stuff we put up, whether it be comic books, movies, toys, sports, whatever. We have some. I'm sure we got some article there that'll pique your interest. I want to thank Joe and Jared for coming tonight, and also for Shauna coming on to talk about Daredevil season 2. Really appreciate everybody coming out. Andrew get better, and we'll probably see him next week at some point. But yeah, go check us out, monstergeek.com, Facebook, Monsters of Geek blog. Subscribe to us here on YouTube, Monsters of Geek blog as well, and also on Twitter at Monsters of Geek. So go check us out on all those mediums, and that's where we post stuff. So you get to read some cool stuff. All right, so with that, the first spoiler cast is in the books, and hopefully we'll be able to do more. So we'll see you later.